right onto my
Thank you.
computer because we have the ability with all of my extra RAM, but you can also record right to the cloud. When you're using your laptop, it gives you that function right when you click the button. Now, for those who've been, has anyone here used Zoom in its past iterations? Raise your hand if so. Like in 2017, has anyone? Nope. So Zoom has come a long way, and they're really stepping up to make this process as easy as possible, because we all recognize this is an extremely trying time, and all we're trying to do is connect either to our business partners, our customers, or our clients, our family, our loved ones, as quickly and easily as possible. And that's what Zoom is allowing us to do here. When you are first signing up, there are a few differences if you are using a Mac versus a PC. You don't really have to worry about this. If you have a smartphone or a tablet, since those are already going to come with a front-facing camera, but it is very important to say Zoom works best if you have a camera attached to a computer. So if you're using a monitor, you might have to purchase your own camera, and that is a very simple process to connect those. However, I'm assuming that everybody today has a camera already on their laptop or their device, and we're not going to go through that process. However, when you are signing up, audio, a lot of the times, including right now, I am using the audio right through my laptop that's built into it. When I'm listening to you, I'm listening straight through the speakers. The best etiquette, the people who've been using Zoom for years, everybody uses headphones. I'm gonna put my video back on. There we go. Everybody uses headphones. It allows you to control the volume output a lot more clearly. You're gonna get a better sound, and it's just better etiquette in general. Another thing that we're going to cover, as you can see, I'm facing a brick wall, and I came in to work specifically so I could have this brick wall, because all of my Zoom meetings, even now you can see with my glasses, I'm getting a terrible glare. All of my Zoom meetings have been at home where I have just walls of windows. So usually I look like a black shadow and everything is blown out behind me. You just don't want to be facing a light source dead on with the camera. Make sure you have somewhere, ideally with multiple points of lighting, that has like a nice yellowish glow. Usually if you have 2 points in front of you, one directly behind you, giving you some soft backlighting, that's going to be optimal lighting experience. And a solid background. You can use a brick wall. I like this because there's less reflection than a white wall, which is going to reflect a lot more light, but to each their own. And as John said, there's a lot of cool features we're going to get into. If you don't have any cool background like I do at Greenspace CoWork, you can change your background and pretty much any feature of your profile in Zoom as you go along. But before we get going, let's just cover some of the very basics. So there's a lot of ways. Oh, I'm viewing Lucinda, you started screen sharing.
I just was exploring.
Okay. So this is something that I was going to do. I'm going to now go to view options. I'm going to exit full screen that Lucinda brought us into. And
Oh, I'm sorry.
Nope,
Did
it's
that
okay.
bring everybody up? Oh, sorry about that.
Nope. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to so we're going to go through some, Lucinda, keep this here. This is perfect. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to skip ahead for a second, and we're going to show how easy it is to deal with these sort of situations as they arise. And it happens all the time. And there's some simple things we're going to talk about that are going to keep you from getting into these issues. But when you are the host, which I am right now, and I've been made the host, you can make someone else a host of a meeting separately, and there's all sorts of things you can do. Oh no, Lucinda.
Oh, you want me to do it again?
Yes, I'm gonna, so at the bottom, everybody sees that we have a toolbar here. Now you can make that toolbar sit there permanently in settings. You can have that toolbar sit there for a few seconds and then it will disappear. All you gotta do is move your mouse, bam, it's right there again. You have a button that says chat, and you have a button that says participants. Now, participants are going to be most useful for me because I am the host. Now I've made Rachel a host, which means she can do things like recording. You should be able to as well. As a host, I have the ability to mute and unmute everybody. I can share screens as well as you, but I can also, before you set up a meeting, change all the preferences around so that everybody comes in muted and without an ability to share a screen. So you can essentially use this as a classroom. I have multiple cousins who are in college and they're all using Zoom and they are getting along fabulously. But as you can tell, we're only, 6 people right now. If you have 100 people in a Zoom session, which you can, you need to be much more wary of all the noise that's going to generate. So it's much more in your favor to allow people to come in silently, get accustomed to the Zoom layout, and then they sort of fall into line. And that causes a lot less of a holdup at the beginning of every Zoom meeting. So I tend to do that. Unfortunately, I didn't set up this particular one, but the next one I will. So let's pretend Lucinda was still doing that screen share, or better yet, I'm going to go and share a screen right here. It's a lovely picture. As you can see, this is what I spend most of my day looking at. Now, when I have a share screen up, this is one of my favorite features. That's why they make it so prominent, and they have that nice green button right there. There's multiple things that you can do as a host and on a laptop that you cannot do necessarily on a phone or as just a participant. So that is important to recognize. I think in general, the ultimate etiquette for using Zoom is to already have the application downloaded on your computer. You don't necessarily need it. If somebody is sending a business meeting out to members of their family, let's say, who haven't downloaded Zoom yet, it's simply a link that people can click. It will open in their browser. But the way that most of us use Zoom is it's a key ID and a password. And the password is getting more and more important these days, as I'm sure you've seen in the news, all these cyber attacks. It obviously makes sense. If you put a public key ID out in the world, anyone can access that Zoom channel. And because Zoom has only been used by such a few select people up till now, that just hasn't been an issue. Now, there are people who are just posting these IDs to Reddit. So you want to be very careful that if you want it to be a private meeting, you also enable a password. The easiest way to do that is to set a meeting in advance in the calendar, and we'll go through that in a second. But going back to the screen share. So when I am on the screen share right here, what are you all seeing? Are you seeing just the picture? Do you see also the green bar at the top that says ID?
No, we only see the picture and it says screenshot at the top, and then you have your 3 little red, yellow, green dots.
Okay.
And that's it.
If we take our cursor up to the top, though, it says you are viewing Jeremy Goldsher's screen, and then view options.
So let's see.
Up at the top of the photograph.
Now, okay. Oh.
Now we see the whole screen.
Well, I saw the whole Zoom chat. Okay, but you now see the whole screen here. All right.
Yes.
And my Zoom has now popped out to a whole bunch of different windows that I can go and manipulate up top if I absolutely need to. The main thing is that when I move my mouse around, you see that this bar up here has appeared, correct?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when you're sharing, just a couple things. It's a great feature. You can either stop the share immediately, and that will take you right back to the view that you were accustomed to, rather that's gallery view or speaker view. If you move the mouse around, you can also pause share, which would take you back to the standard view, and then you can resume share. Or you can go straight to a new share, and you can bring up all sorts of things. As a host on a computer, I can do my iPhone or an iPad. You can set up multiple Zoom accounts, or you can stack Zoom accounts under your own name. Each way is beneficial in its own right, and there is no wrong answer there. But you can have multiple sources ready to go whenever you enter a meeting. So let's say you have a video that you want to show people. You can have that ready on your iPhone and enable AirPlay, or just simply have a USB cord, connect that to your computer. And when you go into your settings, which we're going to go back to, and we're going to kind of retrace our steps in just a second, go back to the basics, you can enable all these things in settings. And it's best to do all of this in advance before you get onto the meeting. Again, most of the time we're on Zoom, I think we just take about 10 minutes to associate ourselves with the different controls, and that's what chews up a lot of your time. And as you notice, I have a tracker at the top that says we've been going now I've been going for 18 minutes and 52 seconds. That's something I enabled in the settings. It's important to remember that because I'm using the free account. Now, I can't say for sure if Zoom is still allowing like unlimited free meetings, but I do know that their general free membership is 40 minutes long. And once you pass 40 minutes, if it's not a one-on-one meeting, it's going to boot you. That being said, it's not too expensive to upgrade to the basic package, and so on, depending on what you need to use Zoom for. But you should be aware of that. I keep a little ticker up here so I don't go over my time. So I'm going to stop sharing. And that's going to take me back here. Hello, everybody. And we're going to go, let's see if I can share this. Yes, I can do this. All right. Okay, so we're not going to do it that way. I had planned on doing this on my phone. What we are going to do, though, is we're going to play around with some of the settings. So we're going to talk about how to get into them, and then we're going to go over one or two fun things. Unfortunately, time is already moving way too quickly. First things first, let's talk about the audio. So when you first come into Zoom, you have those 4 buttons, but also at the very top, just like every other page, you're going to have a couple of different items that you can click on. Zoom.us in your top left corner. That is going to be your first and easiest access to all the settings. You would just click Zoom.us and you go to Preferences. All right. What pops up for me is audio. I'm going to actually stop my video so I can focus on all these different screens. Just so you know, you can change that little J icon. It's very simple. You just go into your user preferences, which I can point out in a second, and you can change that to whatever you want. I like dinosaurs, so next time we speak, that J will be a dinosaur. So when I come onto Zoom, I'm on audio. The first thing you're going to see is speaker at the top. You're going to have an option to test the speaker. Make sure you do that. Before you go into any Zoom meeting, you're going to want to test your speaker and make sure that you're getting an output. At the very top, it says built-in output. But if you have your headphones plugged in, you can click your headphones. They will have the same output into your headphones. Make sure you do that for optimal experience. Test microphone. Next item down. If you click the test mic, that allows you to optimize the volume output. Now, there are some things that people don't normally realize. When you have your volume on your computer all the way up, it is going to distort you. Your volume is not meant to go to 100%. At about 75% on computers, your volume starts to distort you and amplify you. So make sure you have your volume at around 75, 80%. You can also click the automatically adjust microphone volume if that does not feel like something you want to mess around with. If you go over to video, again, everybody has a camera pretty much built into their device. You don't need to worry about this too much. If you do have a much nicer camera, let's say you want to put together something for your clients that's in HD and you have an HD camera, which I have a lot of DSLRs, you can plug a DSLR right into your computer at home, set it up on a tripod. You can enable HD. If you see, again, you're in video under settings, my video, enable HD. You can mirror my video, which will just flip you back and forth. Now you want to have, I like to have my video mirrored. I don't think I do right now, but if you have your video mirrored, that just means when you turn left on your computer, it looks like your head is also going to turn to the left. It's not going to give you an inverse and cause you to be confused. There's also a button that says touch up my appearance. That does absolutely nothing. I know, I've tried it many times. It does not get rid of those wrinkles as much as I wish it did. But there's a lot of other cool things. A lot of the settings are very intuitive, and you really don't need to know any of them, but that is where you're going to find the sweetest features, and you definitely should just spend half an hour just going through these settings, and they're so easy to get into. At the bottom, we're going to get out of the zoom.us. If you go to the bottom, every one of these functions has another ability to get right to those settings. Mute, there's an arrow pointing up. You click on it, has the audio settings. Start video, boom, has the audio video settings. If you want to expand it advanced, you can go to video settings ... and that will just take you right back to that same screen we were just on. Now, just for fun, we're going to throw this in. Super easy what John did earlier. You click that little arrow, FaceTime camera is already connected. The very next thing, choose your virtual background. Rachel already did it. That's so cool. If everybody wants to choose a virtual background, feel free. I uploaded an image from my CoWork space. I'm going to show you right now. Bam. So
and mine is uploaded too. This is a photograph of a painting I have.
Yep. So right now, hey, remember when people were working in offices? So this is how easy it is to do. You can create your own virtual background. As you can see, it's not going to be perfect. In video settings, though, there is, oh, I have a chat. Wonderful. I don't have my chat button open, though. That is my fault. So I have to get that back up. So if you guys want to chat, that is a great function. How to change the background on an iPad. Barbara, just for time's sake, I'm going to send you that answer shortly. It's not that hard. I will say, so when you're using an iPhone and you're using an iPad, it is going to be a little bit more complicated to get to the settings that you're going to want to use, and the functions are also going to be a little more limited. So like share screen, you don't have all the abilities to share like a whiteboard or to do all, you can do breakout rooms, but whiteboard and a few other things like annotation, which are functions that I use all the time. That's going to be in our next session. Essentially, if you want to share any infographics or charts, or you want to have a active participation session, and then split people into groups so that they have their own session. You can prepare prompts. It really just goes on and on, all the things you can do. But we will go over the iPad in a second, Barbara. I'll come back to that. But again, you saw how easy it is to do a virtual screen, or virtual background rather. I'm going to go back to none because I love my brick. Let's go to participants. So when I start Zoom, I always have two things clicked. I have participants and I have my chat enabled. And you'll see those buttons at the bottom of your screen if you're using a laptop. If you're using a pad, you might have to scroll down a little bit, but those options should be there. I also know that on a phone, you have an option to swipe. You know, that's the main difference between a phone. That was something we talked about in the info that we would go over. When you're using a phone, a lot of people are using a phone on the go. Phones pick up ambient sound a lot more readily than any of these other systems that we use. So when you're using the phone and you swipe to the side, there's an option to click on a talk. It's like a speak button. It either says speak or talk. I can't remember off the top of my head. And when you click that button and then let go, it allows you to speak without it picking up any of that walking around noise or running water noise that tends to be in the background when we're moving with our phones. There are going to be similar options on an iPad. If you're moving, it's just good to be aware you're going to want to enable your audio to be on a button press option. That you have the same option on your computer. We don't necessarily need to use it, but spacebar is the short key for that. There's a whole list of short keys again in the settings. If you were to go up to zoom.us, go to preferences, at the very bottom, you'll see keyboard shortcuts. And you'll have handy shortcuts for all of these things that you can do here. Just a quick note, we talked about the profile earlier. In the settings, you're also going to be able to find that profile. You're also going to be able to find anything about recording, which we're doing right now. As you can see in the top right section, if you have the participants button clicked, does everybody have that button clicked? Everybody sees it's me, the host, Lucinda, Barbara, Community Television, John Iverson, Lori, Rachel. If you see at the very top, there's a little button with a little red dot that's blinking in it. That means that we are currently recording. I'm the one recording. It is public knowledge. So nobody can just record a meeting without everybody being aware of it. But it's good to just keep track and remind somebody to stop a recording if they have lost track of time. Again, if you're in this participants window, there's all sorts of things you can do as a host. For example, Lucinda, I scroll over Lucinda's name. The first thing I see is a mute button. So I can mute. I can then unmute. If you go to the next button, it says more, and then I have a few different options. One thing I can do is I can highlight that video for Barbara right here. So I just brought her front and center. And then I can cancel the spotlight video. And I can move over to John. And now, instead of clicking the participants window, I am now clicking directly on the Zoom screen. And I'm clicking, right now I have everybody in gallery view. So I'm clicking on John at the top. And when I hover my mouse over John, same two buttons are going to show up. That's how easy it is. You have, again, multiple roads to the same end. So John, I'm going to unmute. I'm going to click on the right button, which is ... but essentially it's more. And now I'm going to spotlight that video. So now you are spotlighted. Hey, John. Wonderful. And that way, as the host, you can sort of highlight people, move people around as necessary. If somebody is talking on their phone and they haven't realized that they're broadcasting to everybody, it's your job as the host to make sure that they are muted and that everybody is able to understand the meeting or the activity that's taking place. So I'm going to go back to gallery view here. How can participants be in, I'm looking at the chat. How can participants be enabled to record? Is that pin video? Right now, does everybody have an ability? Let's see. I want to go to my participants. I want to go to unmute all. So everybody who wants to talk should be able to talk. Does everybody have an ability to record a video? Does everybody have that function?
I do.
It says, please request recording permission from the meeting host.
Yeah.
What device?
So it's blocked it's blocked probably as Mick set up the meeting. It probably was blocked so that only we could record it.
Okay, so yeah, so normally when you have a meeting, some of these settings are not in place. I would not have put that one in place. So everybody should have the ability. Again, there's so many things that you can do to tailor the experience before people walk in. Even the way that you enter into a Zoom meeting, there's a certain etiquette. When I join a Zoom meeting, I like to go right through the application that's on my laptop. I put in the ID, I put in the password, it gives you a little chime and you're in it. But a lot of the times when I'm joining, I don't like to have the audio enabled and I don't like to have my video enabled right from the get-go. I like to give myself a few seconds to orient yourself. And I'm sure as many of you saw when you tried to join this meeting, the very first thing that pops up, new message. The very first thing that pops up is going to be a option to join with the audio live. So you can click that. I clicked that. I already went into my settings in advance. Again, you would go into your zoom.us at the top left. You go into your preferences. You go into your video and you go into meetings. That's the third highlighted word down. So always display participant name on their videos. I like to have that so I know the names of the faces I'm seeing. I have turn off my video when joining a meeting clicked. So my video is going to show up as my profile when I start. and not my regular video. And then I also have always show video preview dialogue when joining a video meeting. That essentially means you get a few seconds of the live stream before it projects you into the meeting. That's good, again, just if you want to orient yourself. But I find that the turn off my video function sort of takes care of that. A lot of options here: virtual backgrounds, recording, profile, statistics. You don't need to know anything about that. A lot of this stuff is unnecessary, guys. But I'll tell you, everybody is already figuring out how to use the chat, which is wonderful. The chat is a great function. You can do a bunch of things. You can either, as Rachel and Barbara have already seen, chat to somebody privately. If you're in a big meeting and you don't want everybody to know your business, you can chat privately. Actually, Rachel, why don't you just quickly tell people how you did that? I'm gonna unmute you. Well, you have to unmute yourself.
Yep. So how I did that was the same way that everybody else is. If you go into chat where it says 2 on the bottom, you can click that little arrow. Right now it should be set to email or to chat with everyone. You click that little arrow, it'll list everybody who's on there. So I'm going to give a shout out to Lori. I'm going to say hi. And Lori's going to get a message that just says hi. So I picked her out, and then I can go back to that little arrow and hit everyone and say, you know, nice to meet you or whatever. It does, of course, because my video is on the low end, you get to see my typing fingers. Okay?
Now,
and then you just hit enter.
Now, something that's interesting, sorry, Rachel, to cut over you, and I am aware of the time, so we only have probably a few more minutes. I am sorry, but what we can do, Rachel, why don't you quickly type in an email link at the bottom there, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to email everybody an answer to all of your questions. Barbara, you'll be first, that I didn't get to, and because this is just my first time doing this, I hope you're all a little patient with me, but I do love this program. There are all sorts of functions. It does take a little more than half an hour to go through everything, but it is easier if you have specific questions, and I can give you very direct answers to get you to where you need to go. One of the things you can do as a host, and again, a lot of these things are really just host specific. When you're joining a meeting, it's you have 3 options. You have a link that is generated, and you can just click that link and it will open up in your Zoom browser. You have a key ID. If you download the application, which you should do, it's either an app on your phone or iPad or iOS device or on your laptop. You can just go and directly enter that key ID, and then if you absolutely need to, you have a password. That being said, everyone also has their own ID. I have my own 9-digit ID. 3 numbers, dash 3 numbers, 3 numbers. If you collect the IDs of friends of yours, you can add them to your contact list. You can also do that through email, and that allows you to create faster chat groups and pre-programmed meeting rooms that are just ready to go. I play Dungeons and Dragons once a week. I have a Dungeons and Dragons room set up here. And all of us are available to join and leave at any point. So right now we're creating a very specific room and time. When we're done with this meeting, that room ends, but that doesn't necessarily need to be the case. You can save rooms. You can have those rooms for later. You can set up all these settings like Mick did in the background so that they're ready to go for whatever you need to do. If you're doing multiple meetings, I highly suggest doing that. It's very easy to do. If you would just go to, let's see, he says, when you click out of the meeting, there will be an option to save it. Again, sorry for being vague about that, but I can answer that more fully when we have more time. When I'm looking at the chat, though, just important to notice, when you bring up different people's names, like Rachel, I'm bringing up Rachel's name, there's, for the host, 3 buttons on the right. I can either save that chat if there was some really important information or a document that was shared, which you can also do in the chat window. That's essentially not just chat like text, it's also a Dropbox option. So you can use that chat to share files throughout the meeting, publicly or privately. I, as a host, have the ability to individually go through and control if you have the ability to talk to everybody publicly, privately, or just publicly, or only to me or to nobody. So if you want the meeting to be very straightforward, you don't want people speaking, you don't want people chatting, you can enable all of that very easily. Let's see. Is there anything else while we have just a few more seconds here that people have like basic questions that they're struggling with that I can answer? Everybody can unmute yourselves.
Um,
Yes.
when you are in gallery view,
Yes.
the images tend to shift around.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct? Is there
Mhm.
any way to freeze the images in a specific order? In other words, not to have them shifting around. We're rehearsing with 21 people,
Mm-hmm.
which means I have 2 screens full of gallery view when we've got them. Can we, so that we can find each other and actually rehearse, perhaps pretending that we're talking to each other, like turning our heads and talking like that, as if we were in a dialogue scene together? Is there a way to freeze the frames in place?
Yeah, there should be a way to do that. Again, it's all going to be in preferences. You're going to want to go to your preferences. You're going to want to go to, let's see here.
A video?
Yeah, probably in video. You want to make sure that you have display up to 49 participants per screen in gallery view, because you're going to have a lot of people. So you want to make sure that everybody.
Is that in advanced?
You don't need to do it in advance. I find it. Where is the settings button?
Yeah, I see it, but it's grayed out in my
That's because you're not the host.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. Yep.
So a lot of these things are host specific.
Right.
You can, what that is, Lucinda, is
Yeah.
settings that highlight who's speaking and kind of optimize the viewing experience.
Right.
So the program is already built to shift people around sort of based on where we're talking and what's going to be the most optimal. But you have the ability to disconnect all those functions. Send that email through chat. I will send you very specific instructions on how to get there and do that. But yes, that is possible. Any other questions? John, I know you wanted to learn something like new and fun. Is there anything, do you know how to use reactions?
Well, no, you just told me a lot of the possibilities, and I figure I'll just go find them.
Okay, so
it's not a big deal.
These reactions right here, they can be helpful.
Yep, I saw the reactions. Yep.
The thumbs up and the clapping are a little silly. There actually are a lot more emojis and whatnot you can use, but they're very helpful in a classroom. If somebody wants to raise a hand, they can just do thumbs up, and that way the host is aware that they have a question, but they want to wait till an appropriate time.
But Jeremy, there's another way to do this without having it on the screen. If people are looking at the participants list that you had talked about before,
yes,
if they have it on the side of their screen,
mm-hmm.
you can actually hit on one of the buttons that is raise hand. And so if you go back to that participant screen, you'll see right now that my hand is raised. And so that's another way of doing it without kind of assaulting people. So it's not right over our faces. And so then Jeremy, as the leader, would look at that and be like, okay, Rachel is up next. And then when my question is answered, I can let go of my raised hand.
As far as whether or not Rachel does that, I also have the ability. Yep, everybody's playing around with it. But I also have the ability, if I just hover my mouse right over the name of someone who has a raised hand, I get a button that says lower hand. So we're at 10:39. This was a bit of a rambling preview of Zoom meetings to come. I'm very new at this, and I really thank you for sticking with us for this period of time. Yes, Lucinda.
Yeah, I just wanted to say you're doing a fantastic job, Jeremy.
Oh, thank you so much.
Really
but we
appreciate
have plenty of Zoom tips and tricks to go through. I can go over everything from the basics to some of the advanced settings. What I will probably do is, if you all send an email to Rachel through the email that she provides, All of those emails will then get forwarded to me, and I will write back, or I will film a custom response. One thing I very much encourage you to do is to play around with the share screen functions. One of the things we didn't really go through today is when you start a meeting, and I would like to go through that next time. There are a couple of ways to do it. None of them are necessarily wrong, and all of them are very easy. If you want to get into the advanced functions, wonderful. You don't need to at all. Zoom takes care of the basics pretty much right away. And there are just a few things you really need to prepare for to make sure that you have an optimal experience. It's the audio, using headphones, especially if you're in a public place, testing your speaker before you get into a meeting, making sure that your video is working and that you can see your face. Again, you can do all of this before the meeting in settings.
And I don't know if people see my lovely video now. If you look at me, it's a picture, and that's something that you can set up ahead of time too.
Yep.
You drop in a picture, otherwise it'll just say your name, like some of the other people's have there, or the J that Jeremy had. So, I mean, that's nice for me. When my son was behind me watering plants, I quickly put that up so that people didn't have to watch my son. So that's something that's ahead of time too. And that you can just get by hitting stop video.